Don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against non-dual teachers. And I don't refute the truth of non-duality. I just don't like the way non-duality is used as a permission structure for nihilism. The way non-duality is used as an excuse for trying to run away from one's problems. Or how it makes people give in to their laziness and makes them lose their diligence. I mean, I understand that people want to escape from their past, their memories, and trauma. It's unpleasant, right? All beings want to achieve happiness and also to be free from suffering. That's natural. But ultimately, you will never achieve lasting happiness by trying to run away from your problems. In fact, lasting happiness can only come from facing up to your problems and accepting reality. And the reason why I say that non-duality gets used as a permission structure for nihilism is because in an attempt to run away from one's suffering by adopting a falsified view of non-duality, then often what happens is one becomes very cold-hearted and insensitive to the sufferings of others. In an attempt to escape our own trauma, then we fool ourselves, kid ourselves on, that we've realized a really high level of view on the spiritual path. This view of equality, that there is no good or bad, there is no high or low, there is no path, and there is no one to tread the path, no meditator, nor anything to meditate upon. And then when we're confronted with the obvious suffering of others, and we tell ourselves we've realized non-duality, equality, then we just turn a blind eye and repeat our mantra. Nothing is separate, that there is no good or bad. There is no happiness, nor is there suffering. And the reason why this is a mistake, to convince oneself that one has realized this view, is because quite clearly for us there is good and there is bad. And how you can tell whether or not you have the view of good or bad is by being mindful of your own reactions, your own responses to the appearances of the mundane world. Whether or not you are able to accept the opinions of others, and whether or not, fundamentally, you have this wish to protect the self. Not only protect the self from harm, but also to protect the self from insult. From infamy. Likewise, if people compliment us, praise us, and we immediately get happy, then this is a sign we haven't realized non-duality. In fact, we love to hear others sing our praise. Even if we don't show it on the outside, then generally on the inside, we are smiling. Somebody tells you you're beautiful or intelligent, or that you're such a good Dharma practitioner. That really cheers us up. Makes us feel good about ourselves. And likewise, if we receive criticism or blame, somebody says, "Oh, why did you do that? That's your fault." Generally, we don't like that. But especially when it wasn't our fault. And then we get blamed for something. We find it completely intolerable. And so that's a sign, right? That you haven't realized equality. That you have remained an ordinary being. And when we see those things that we like, when we encounter that which we desire, then immediately we give rise to clinging and attachment. Those near and dear to us, we cherish almost as much as we cherish ourselves. And we dislike those who we consider to be our enemies, those who try to do us harm. In general, then, our non-duality is fine when it comes to our own actions. Again, it's a permission structure. It allows us to do whatever we want to do. And then if anybody tries to criticize or blame us, then we spout out our mantra that everything is not separate, everything is not dual. Why are you getting upset with me? Can't you see? We are not two. But as soon as it comes to other people's actions, then we immediately lose our non-duality. For example, if I've said something to upset you on this video, then you're very quick to find fault in that. And to preach your non-duality to me. Well, for me, there is good and bad. I like some stuff, and I dislike other things. I like a cup of tea. I used to like alcohol, but I don't drink anymore. I have preferences. I have anger. I have desire. I have ignorance, jealousy, and pride. The whole lot. In general, then, it's easy to detect when we give rise to anger. It's very obvious, and it's difficult to hide. Likewise, when we give rise to desire, often we become embarrassed. But it's very difficult to notice when we give rise to jealousy and pride. In general, when we become jealous, we see it as being the fault of another. For example, if somebody does well in our class and they get praise from the teacher, and that makes us feel uncomfortable. But we tell ourselves, they're so proud, look at them. They just love it. They're getting the attention. It makes us angry. If you feel uncomfortable when others receive praise, then that is 100% a sure sign that you've got a jealous mind. Let's face it, you want them to fail. And in their place, you want the praise all for yourself. And it's the same for pride. When we think we know better and we're better than others, then we see it as being their fault. Just like with jealousy. When we're jealous, we see it to be the fault of another. Our irritation isn't because we're jealous, our irritation is because they're so proud. And then when we find fault in others, and we look down on them, and give rise to pride, we also see it to be their fault, not ours. We see it to be a sign of their failing, their lack of positive qualities. But what you should know is that these are all signs that you haven't realized non-duality. And likewise, we use this teaching, we use our realization of equality as an excuse to be lazy. Right? We've all heard it. There's no path to tread. There's no traveler on the path. There's no meditator or meditation to be done. So we can just sit back and take it easy. That's our non-duality. And so let's say, for example, that I tell you not to be lazy. I say to you, don't fool yourself. You're just using this as an excuse to be lazy. Apply yourself. You've got to meditate. You've got to try to get rid of your negative emotions, your kleshas. The first thing that rises to mind is that I don't need to meditate. I'm already awakened. There is no separation between me and the ultimate. But what you don't think is, well, sure, if I meditate and I'm diligent, or if I'm lazy, it makes no difference. And if you had that view, then you wouldn't get upset about applying yourself. But this is the way it is. When we hear about non-duality, when we hear about equality, we always think about the stuff we like, right? Because the teachers tell you you don't have to give anything up, right? You're just fine the way you are. You don't have to give anything up. And we like that. There's no good or bad. So we hear there's no good or bad, and we think, great, that means I can have all the stuff I like. I can have all the good stuff. We don't think, great, I can have the bad stuff, right? For example, we think, oh, great, I'm going out to the pub tonight. I'm going to get drunk with my friends. and I'll pick somebody up and we'll have fun. We immediately think about the stuff we like, right? We don't think, oh, great, everything's non-dual, there's no good or bad, and hit ourselves on the head with a hammer, right? Of course we don't, because we don't like that. Likewise, we don't put ourselves in a position for the derision of others. We don't go out of our way to embarrass ourselves, because we dread that, to be honest. Again, this is a sign that you have no idea what non-duality is. Because that's exactly what the masters of the past did when they realized non-duality. In order to check themselves out, to see how their practice was going, then they would go into the marketplace and do crazy stuff to get other people upset at them. Like take off all their clothes and dance naked in the middle of the street. And then of course people would throw stones at them and beat them up and shout at them, "You lunatic, you crazy person, get out of here, what are you doing?" So they were doing this to check if their practice was going well or not. And if they gave rise to aversion, oh, I don't like this, I don't like people shouting at me, throwing dirt at me and stones, then they knew immediately they still had work to do. But that's not the way we check ourselves out. We hear everything is non-dual, there's no good or bad, and we immediately just go and do the stuff we like. Because it gives us pleasure. We see it to be good. Anyway, if I'm upsetting you, you haven't realized non-duality. The sign that your spiritual practice is going well is that your loving kindness and compassion for others will flourish. And along with that, then your self-concern will diminish. You will lose your self-cherishing and develop cherishing for others. Another sign to indicate that you're making progress is that you will develop humility. They say you should take your place below the monastery dog. That means you should be last in the line for everything. Take the lowest seat. But we don't understand the spiritual path. As soon as we think we're developing some qualities, then we want name. We want a special name, like Rinpoche or Lama. We want people to look up to us. We want a high seat or to sit on a stage. We want the veneration and respect of others. But this isn't the way the masters of the past did their spiritual path. Just have to look at somebody like Patrul Rinpoche, for example. No one knew who he was. When he was traveling here and there in Tibet, people would say things like, "Who's that old man over there?" He never made a fuss of himself or drew attention to himself. And he never claimed to be anybody special. In fact, once when he was traveling, and he would always travel on foot, he would never ride a horse. Riding a horse or riding a yak was something that rich people did. He would walk on foot, and he came to a little monastery in the middle of nowhere looking for somewhere to sleep. And there was a monk inside. He opened the door, and he saw Patrul Rinpoche, and he thought, "Who's this poor, pathetic old man?" And he said, "Look, come inside. You know, you really should better yourself. You should try to do something positive with your life. Come here, and I'll teach you some Dharma. And then this old monk pulled out Patrul Rinpoche's own book. It's called The Words of My Perfect Teacher. He pulled out his own book and started teaching it to him. Now, if this was us, if somebody was trying to teach us our own book that we wrote, we'd be like, hey, wait a second. I wrote that. You're trying to teach me? I know this more than you do. Patrul Rinpoche didn't do that. He sat there with faith and devotion in his eyes and listened very carefully and attentively to every word the old monk said. So if you have some high level of practice, then you should be like Patrul Rinpoche. And it's not something you can fake. It comes naturally. Well, anyway, it's getting late. I don't really think I have anything else to say. So until next time, and see you later.